Welcome to Issues That Matter. I'm Cynthia Fuller. My guest today is Diane Sare. And Diane and I are going to talk about the showdown in the Oval Office that happened last Friday. So, Diane, what was your reaction?
Well, I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. I think Trump was right when he said this will make great television. Zelensky was astounding, and I don't know if it's just his cocaine habit. I think Zelensky doesn't do anything without instructions, either from the US or the UK. So I was thinking back to the tweet that Vice President Vance had put out maybe a week earlier, where he warned him. He said it's very bad to denounce President Trump. You're not starting off on the right foot. And then clearly someone had told Zelensky not to go with the deal, to hold out for security, to try and keep the United States, either one of two reasons, to keep the United States ensnared in this meat grinder, which will kill every last man in Ukraine for a war which is not destroying Russia, or the purpose was to get Zelensky dumped to set him up. I'm not sure which, but and the result of this is that Trump was not taking the bait. He wants this war ended, and he did not appreciate the way Zelensky comported himself in the meeting, obviously.
Well, it started off fine and it started off cordial. And then J.D. Vance said something, and it sparked this whole acrimonious situation.
Well, actually, it wasn't J.D. Vance, it was Zelensky. The thing was about to end. And then Zelensky said, but one more thing. Remember, he was the one who prolonged it. And then
Oh,
he said to Vance, and when were you last in Ukraine?
uh-huh.
Now, what an insult. I mean, Nancy Pelosi and everybody and their brother, Jill Biden, has been over there, which also shows you that the Russians are not doing to Kiev what the Israelis have done to Gaza, right? You can still get electricity. You must be able to have decent security. People run around, they're running in and out of Kiev all the time, or Kyiv, as I guess some people now call it. But Vance said, look, I have seen, and we've all seen the videos of these poor Ukrainian men getting kidnapped. Or maybe 10 days ago, you might remember there was a mother who blew herself up with the recruiting agent. They came to abduct her son, and she set off explosives, killing herself and one of the
Oh my
conscriptors.
God.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
So from your perspective, it seems as though my thought is Zelensky is not too anxious to end the war. What do you think?
Well, he made some comments saying that yesterday, for which he was again resoundingly denounced by Trump. I don't know where he was speaking, was covered in Associated Press, and Zelensky said, "I expect the war to go on for a very, very long time." Now, I don't
Yes.
know if he got a secret backroom deal with Lindsey Graham, who thinks it's great for the war to go on for a long time because it's good for American military contractors. But Trump was quite angry, and he said, we've had enough. And then, as you know, Trump cut off aid to Ukraine finally.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, but from what I've seen in the news, many countries are backing Zelensky. Many European countries are backing Zelensky. What do you think about that?
I think NATO's going to disintegrate. And they're very, very divided. I mean, they just met 17 countries except the US. They had this NATO rump meeting in the UK in London with Canada, and they didn't come out with anything because I'm sure they couldn't. Hungary's not going to go along. The Czech Republic is not going along. I don't know what Turkey thinks these days. They do not have Maloney said she objects if the US isn't going to keep, quote unquote, protecting Europe or are towing Europe along. She doesn't agree with the British-French nuclear umbrella. So these so-called European countries are very, very disunited, very disunified.
Are they fearful of a world war? Do you think?
Apparently not, they're not enough. They should be a
Okay.
lot more worried about it.
Okay. Okay, because many countries, and I don't know about your Facebook feed, but mine is just absolutely horrible with all of the people that, really do not support Trump. They're saying we stand with Ukraine. Now we live in the 21st century. People know how to read. There's all kinds of stuff on TV, but yet they're so ignorant of what the facts really are. What does that say for society?
Well, I mean, they've been fed so much disinformation on the mainstream press. And if people are busy, I mean, I spoke with someone who's very close, who's an intelligent person. And I said I was happy to see what happened in the White House with Trump and Zelensky. And she said, really? And I said, oh, yeah. And she said, why? I haven't been following it. And I said, well, the whole thing is a lie. I mean, we overthrew the government of Ukraine in 2014. She didn't know that. She didn't know about the Azov battalion and the swastika tattoos and the Hitler tattoos and the Nazi history. Didn't know who Stepan Bandera was. Um, she, to her credit, listened. I didn't get any pushback. And I think will consider what we're being told. And I think actually, Cynthia, the bigger issue, which people are having a hard time thinking through, is that we really are at the end of an era.
Mhm.
This so-called rules-based order dictated by the Anglo-American billionaire club is done.
And when did that start unraveling, in your opinion?
Well, it's interesting because Lyndon LaRouche in 1988 went to Berlin, the Brandenburg Gate, and he called for the Berlin Wall to come down. And a lot of us thought, and he said, the Soviet Union is bankrupt, and the United States should make an offer to feed Poland in return for the peaceful reunification of Germany. And a lot of us thought, this is really weird for an American presidential candidate to be over there with his German wife in Berlin saying Germany is going to be reunified. I don't know if you remember, I was young at the time, but it couldn't even occur to me that Germany would be reunified.
Mm-hmm.
And then a year later, the wall comes down, exactly related to the economic collapse of the East. And LaRouche and his wife both said, look, this is a revolution. It's the end of a system. It represents a huge potential, which, by the way, was squandered by Bush Sr. and Maggie Thatcher, who started all these wars instead of cooperating with the East. But he said, when the transatlantic liberal free trade system collapses, the West, that is going to be much bigger than the fall of the wall. And I would say that is what we are in right now. I mean, look at Africa. I just saw a delightful video in French, so I only got the gist of it, but it was a picture of French troops getting on an airplane, and they say the French military is out of Africa. No one wants them anymore. Nations are getting their independence. They don't want to be colonized, and we should adjust to that. We should adjust to the new role that China is playing, working with 100 and I think it's 165 out of 193 nations on great projects of infrastructure, rail, tunnels, modern ports, trade corridors, nuclear power plants. Russia's doing the same thing. They represent actually the global majority. We in the US are only 4% of the world's population, even though we have a large nuclear arsenal and a large economy. We do not have the majority of public opinion of the world.
So, when do you think this the United States, Donald Trump said that funding for the war will be halted. If it's halted and Zelensky still wants it to go on, who's going to fund it?
Well, in effect, it is halted, I think, as of now. And I think the very latest is Zelensky just sent a message to the White House saying he's very grateful for all the American support and he's ready to talk. So we'll see. He may say he's ready to talk, but if he's not ready for peace, this isn't going to work. Um, Now, the problem is, again, it's a total denial of reality. One, Europe is not going to fund the war. They don't have the resources, so that's not going to function. Apparently, the amount of money in these various tranches already had shrunk greatly from billions of dollars down to millions of dollars, even under Biden. So I saw today earlier an estimate that Ukraine could only continue fighting for a week or days if this is cut, as it seems to be at the moment. But Russia has won the war. They really don't have any more people to send in. And unless Europe is planning to send ground troops, and by the way, that's what Keir Starmer and Emmanuel Macron were here to try and do, is get Trump to agree, all right, no American ground troops, but would you back us up if we send troops? This is complete lunacy. I mean, it really, LaRouche used to tell the story of a guy who gets hit by a school bus and then drags himself into his house and watches the evening news. And if he doesn't see on the news that he got run over by a school bus, he concludes it didn't happen, even though he can't walk. And Europe
Wow.
is sort of like that.
Uh-huh. So, what's your prognosis?
I believe this war is going to end. I think the Trump team and President Putin's team both agree it needs to end. So Ukraine will be forced to end it one way or another. If they don't want to work with the United States and negotiate for peace, then Russia will simply win the war militarily and they will set all the terms as they have been doing. I don't know if Zelensky will still be president when it ends. He may be replaced. That's clearly being mooted by a lot of people.
Mhm.
So I think that's very good. I mean, that's really huge. And I know the British in particular were very, very upset that the United States, Russia, and China voted the same way for the UN Security Council resolution, which stopped short of condemning Russia for a quote unquote unprovoked invasion of Ukraine. They did not mention that on the third anniversary of the special military operation. And I think that's good progress.
What do you think of the people that do not like Trump and don't like his attitude in the meeting last Friday with Zelensky? What do you think of people who call Trump a puppet of Putin?
I think if Trump were a puppet of Putin, he probably would be a bit more polite and smooth.
Hmm.
Um, they're just brainwashed. These are just talking points of the Democratic Party, CIA, FBI, MI6, intelligence agencies. They're just completely brainwashed. What kind of person would want to have a war between the United States and Russia? Who is so ignorant that they know nothing about the Cuba Missile Crisis and our objection to having nuclear missiles 90 miles away from our border in Cuba? Imagine having them right on your border, like if the Russians were going to put nuclear missiles in Toronto. I don't think there's any American who would tolerate that. So I think it's quite ignorant. That people are having that reaction. They just have no understanding of what the situation is, and maybe they haven't looked at a map and are not aware where Ukraine is. I don't know.
Oh, So this is going to be an unfolding story. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, but unfolding quickly. We don't have to wait around. We seem to be having one development coming quickly on the other, so people don't have to sit on their hands and hold their breath very long.
So as this saga unfolds, I'd like to have you back on issues that matter so you could share your thoughts.
Well, thank you very much. I'd be glad to join you.
Thank you. So you've been listening to Diane Sare. I'm Cynthia Pooler. This is Issues That Matter. If you like this show, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Diane, thank you. And thank you
Thank
everybody
you.
for listening. Have a great day.